Hey, I'm Peter G. McDermott. This week on How to Make It Work, we have Mark Traphagen joining us, talking about how to build your personal brand, why you need to have a strong foundation for you on the internet. But first, this is How to Make It Work. Hey, it's Saturday, March 24th, 2012. I'm Peter McDermott here with Mark. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Peter, and good to be with everyone who's joining us today.
Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on this week's episode, and we're going to be talking a little bit about building a personal brand and why that's important. But Mark, a little introduction for yourself. What is it exactly you do on the internet?
Well, I'm Director of Social Media Marketing for an agency in Raleigh, North Carolina called Verante, and have been involved in social media before social media was a word. I guess going back into the 90s, got very interested in the internet as a source of communicating and connecting with other people. It's in the early days of the BB boards and the forums and things like that, and graduated right up into Web 1.0 and now the social media networks. I just quickly kind of cut my teeth in social media marketing or internet marketing, helping out a small independent bookstore up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the owner and I knew we were dying because of Amazon was eating our lunch, was taking away all of our customers. We decided to do something totally stupid and see if we could take the store online and could actually compete with Amazon in a very narrow niche way down in their long tail. And long story short, not knowing what we were doing, but just reading a lot, studying a lot, seeing what worked, testing. We were able to build up an incredibly powerful network and turn the store around from losing about $200,000 a year to a very profitable store. So that alerted me to the power of this medium and what could be done. And now I'm hopefully putting that to work for our clients and friends at Verante.
So Mark, with your work at Verante, I imagine you spend a little bit of time researching how people build personal brands. Now, personal brands can be a fundamental part of your business strategy. So why now, in 2012, are we discovering that it's important not only to advertise your brand or your company, but also yourself?
Well, I think it's more important than ever now. The ability to connect. Well, first of all, let's just say fundamentally, most people would prefer, given the choice, to connect with a person over what we traditionally think of as a brand, like Verante as a brand or Ford Motor Company as a brand. People would rather connect with a person than an impersonal brand. So wherever you can bring that personal connection, you're going to bring a lot more power and just natural influence to that. People trust a person more naturally than they're going to trust a traditional brand. So, and then the question about, why doing that now? Why is it so important now? Well, here we are on Google+, and my particular bandwagon right now is that what Google is doing with Google+, and not just with Google+, but the entire Google network, is that they are more than ever emphasizing personal identity. Personal identity connected with topical content is going to be the next thing that's going to drive influence on the internet. It already is, but Google's putting it together in a more powerful way than ever. And so I think it's the best time of all to be building that personal brand, to be building relationships in that, to become identified with an area, with a niche that you're powerful in, that you know about, that you can help other people in. You're going to get attention.
Excellent. Now, there's a few things I want to ask you about in building a personal brand and what steps you need to do. Obviously, the name of the show, How to Make It Work, we want to teach people how they can build their own personal brand this week. But Google's come up with something very interesting, which has been taking place recently, which is the relationship tag called author. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Sure. Actually, this tag system has been around for years, but sometime last year, Google decided to adopt it and mold it for themselves, for their own purposes. And what they did was they announced that you could now tag your content. You could identify your content and connect it to your Google, at the time, early on, Google profile, now your Google Plus profile, and give Google the opportunity to uniquely identify all of your online content as belonging to you, as being associated with you, and give Google the opportunity to give you credit, as it were, for that content, and to begin to build a profile of you in your main topics. Now, I think you're going to be sharing my blog at some point here, and I have on there some very popular posts that are about, if you search in Google pretty much for show your author photo in Google and watch for my smiling face, you'll find my instruction post on how to implement that on your own blog or your own site. We won't get into all the technicalities here, but basically the things that have been added into that that are very interesting is, well, it started out as just, and got attention when Google started putting your author profile photo in your Google search results, and caught people's vanity. People like me said, like, hey, I'd like to see my picture showing up in Google search results. But it's gone way beyond that in what they're doing with it now. Yeah, there's my company blog, and if you if you search there for like show author photo, or just search Google for show your author photo in Google search, you'll find my post on how to do that. But what they've increased with that now is starting in last summer, there was a series of videos put out by Matt Cutts from Google where they began to talk about something called author rank. And author rank is this idea that as Google is able to identify you uniquely with your content, as you post good content that people like and read and share across the web on certain key topics that your personal brand is associated with, that at some point Google would begin to use that to influence search rankings. We always have to remember Google's all about getting people the best possible results. If they can find Mark Traphagen shares really good stuff about how to use Google Plus for business, then it behooves Google to promote my content in the search rankings when it's relevant to that.
Now, the system as it stands, though, isn't perfect. As you illustrated to me earlier on, there was a post that I had written and spent a lot of time writing. Well, you took the post, shared it, and embellished upon it. Now, you and I both implement the author tag, and the way you implement the author tag is on your personal blog or anywhere else you write things. You include a snippet of HTML which links to your Google Plus profile badge. And that then shows that the content was written by you, and it basically puts your Google identity number to all of your content. Now, I had written a post on Google Plus. You had shared the post organically using the share button, embellished upon it with a few paragraphs of your own. But now if you search for that post, I actually rank number 3 or 4. Your post ranks number 1 with content that I had originally written. Do you think that's the intention of Google, or is that something that needs to be addressed?
Well, first of all, I think you and I agree on this, and we've talked about it before, that at a fundamental level it's a horrible search result. And I think that this does need to be addressed, that you should rank for that content. And what's happening there in this particular example is that right now I am able to rank for, when I share, we should explain this as a fundamental, that anything you post publicly on Google+, and this is why I think Google+ is so powerful, is a web page that Google indexes. I've been on Google since its 3rd day, and every day I post anywhere from 4 or 5 to as much as 20 or 30 public posts. Every single one of those is an indexed web page for Google. Now, when I reshare your content, what happens right now is that your content becomes part of my web page. So if for whatever reason, for that particular niche topic, whatever it is, Google is ranking me higher than you right now, I rank for the keyword that was in your topic. In the example that I actually have a screen capture of this little slide. Can I put that up?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to share your screen. Yep.
All right, now try this out here.
In the meantime, we'll go through some of the comments that we're getting here. We do invite you. This is an interactive broadcast. Please leave your comments below. We're going to give you the opportunity actually to talk to Mark in the second half of the show. Right now, Ronnie Vincer with an interesting thing, personal identity tied to topical content. That's going to be the next big thing. Also remarks that the rel author thing is a little too tricky for the average user. I will agree with that, but it is an incentive for those serious about their content to figure out how to do it and how to excel at it. Mark's obviously done a great job at that.
I will comment, if you look at my post, that Google has made it, Google combined with other people with plugins have made it a lot easier. If you have a single author blog right now, it's a little more complicated for multi-author. In a single author blog, you look at my post about that, there are some very simple methods that you can verify your authorship with Google right now. So you don't have to be a code monkey like you did back when I did it.
Right, and what you can see from this screen share that Mark is showing us right now, the post I had written, "Can Google Plus be fixed?" A post I actually wrote 3 days ago. You can see I'm ranking number 3, whereas really I should be ranking number 1, as that was my original content. Mm-hmm. However, Thomas Power and Mark Traphagen have basically amassed more clout, if you will, in this certain topic, and Google's algorithm deems their content to be more relevant than mine.
And there's a number of us who are trying to explore why that happens, exactly what. It's not, I'm showing a little animated slide here right now, and when I presented this in the seminar the other day, that little trophy was just showing that I've had people do a "What's my line?" and try to guess who had the original content, and you were the winner, but you're losing in Google search on this. It's not followers, because Mohammed has 81,000 at the time that I captured this. You had 43.5. Thomas Power has 26.1, and I had a lowly 10,500 followers on Google+. So there's other things at play here. We're looking at and trying to test out, how much has this author rank come into play in some way? Because I obviously post a lot online and on Google+ about Google+, so that helped me outrank you. Is it some kind of page rank system? Because we've discovered that your personal profiles on Google+ do have a Google page rank. So we're trying to test and figure out what is it that gives somebody that kind of influence on Google+.
No, and that's definitely it. But how can I fix that? As someone building a personal brand, Mark, apart from posting 5 to 35 things every single day, which may be too much for my followers. I may actually have a drop-off in people that would really engage my content if I post too often. Is that something that I'm going to continue to lose out on, or can it be fixed by me posting things with better search engine optimization, which you can't really do on Google+, except through using the bold title and using the keywords for what you want to have indexed in the first few words of what you're going to be writing?
Right. Well, to answer that question, first of all, I think Google should do a fix here, and the strong suggestion that I'd have, and I'm going to be broadcasting this every opportunity I have, is that Google ought to, and just a technical question here, Peter, how can I get back to showing myself?
Yeah, just click screen share again. You'll be good to go.
There we go. Okay. Google ought to be able to separate out, when I do a reshare on Google+, the original content from the content that I add. And I think I should only rank for something that I add if I reshare your post, possibly, but not for the post. And Google certainly has the ability to tell that. They just obviously haven't activated that. So in a sense, I'm scraping and stealing your content when I do a reshare, and that's wrong. Google says they're against that sort of thing on the web, so they should be fixing that here. But aside from that, to more directly answer your question, one of the things that we've found, those of us who are testing and watching this every day, is that the single most important thing, and you actually can optimize for keywords on Google+, the single most important factor for ranking for certain keyword terms is what's in your profile, the about page in your profile. If you look at my profile, and I do this naturally, I'm not keyword spamming. It's what I do talk about, not every post, but a lot. I have things that I want to rank for. Google+ tips. I have social media consulting. I have those some words that I do rank very high for in Google+ search, and now where we've tested that and seen is that will get you to rank within Google+'s own internal search. But I'm thinking more and more to do that. Now also, talking about the author rank and author verification system, remember that in my professional life, on my Verante blog and elsewhere, I also write a lot about Google+. So all that together may be why I outranked you there for that particular post.
So clearly, Mark, then, just through this one little experiment we did, it's important to have a personal brand in order to get your content to come up in search results. So what are some of the first steps that people need to take in order to build a personal brand online?
Well, good question. I think not just on Google, but everywhere. The first step is to decide what is your personal brand about, and really do some time thinking about that. You know, where do you want to be? What, just like a brand needs to do, a startup needs to do, to think about what is our niche, what is our unique proposition, what do we offer to people that nobody else offers, or nobody else offers in quite the same way, and then begin to talk about that everywhere, and talk about it naturally. Become, particularly in social media, I think it's so important to become known as an authority in your area, not only by obviously linking to posts that you write about it and writing original content about that area, but becoming known as someone who will help other people and relate to other people on that. So I think a lot of my influence here on Google Plus in particular has been because I spend time reaching out to people. People have a question about how to use Google Plus properly, especially how to use it for business or for increasing your presence online. I'll take the time to comment, to answer questions about that. And then I start seeing influential people saying, hey, you want to know more about this? You need to follow Mark Traphagen. Go ahead.
So Mark, then, apart from Google Plus, let's say you're somebody between their 20s and their 50s. You have a job at a business, and you're trying to increase your leads, and you want to start leveraging the internet to kind of become an expert in your field. You don't have a personal blog. You've got, let's say you have a presence on Facebook, but only with friends and family. You haven't started on Google Plus. Your Twitter account talks about movies, and it's all over the place. What do you need to do day one to start organizing and building your brand online?
Well, I think that the first thing I do on day one, and I'm going to be speaking as a hypocrite here because I haven't done this, but is to secure a web space of your own, hopefully with your own name as the URL, if you have a unique enough name. You've done that, Peter. A lot of other people have done that. I haven't. I actually did a search last night preparing for this, and somebody has marktraphagen.com. So I'm currently trying to think of a useful variation of that that I could use and rebrand my personal blog, which has been kind of languishing for a number of months around myself. But that's the important thing. Establish a home base. Brand it around your name. Begin to post original, unique, helpful content around the main topical areas that you want to be known for, and then go out and build your social media presence around that. If you have to start a new Twitter account, do that. If you need to kind of clean up your history, as it were, but you can rebrand. And I did that. My Twitter account used to be entirely about just what I had for lunch and what movie I saw last night. And about a year and a half ago, when I got serious about this, I made a shift. It did tick off some of my friends for a little while, but this was important to me. And so and now anybody looking at my Twitter account would know what I'm about.
So Mark, then, in talking about building a personal brand, how should you approach that differently than building your corporate brand? Obviously on Facebook, you have the ability to create pages. On Google Plus, you have the ability to create brand pages. You can create a separate Twitter account for your business. How do you maintain a separate identity from your personal brand and your business brand, and why is that important?
Well, obviously I'm a big advocate of using your personal brand to drive your business brand. And I use Verante as an example. Verante's web presence, as far as social media presence, isn't anything like Ford Motor Company or Nestle Company or something like that at this point, but it is growing and strong. I think a lot of that is coming from my presence online, being willing to put myself out there personally, build helpful relationships to other people. Then a lot of those people will eventually go and look at my profile and say, where's this Mark Traphagen coming from? They'll associate me with Verante and want to follow Verante as well. And frankly, just for the fact that when I find it helpful and useful to my followers, I mixed into the things that I share on social media, my own content or my brand's content. So that would be one thing among many ways to answer your question, is that I think you can, if you're willing to use your personal brand, your personal social media presence to help build your corporate brand, your company brand, whatever that is, that can be a very powerful tool.
So let's talk about then some of the mistakes you've seen people make in building their personal brands.
I think the biggest mistake is, well, number one, is easy to say, is being a spammer. I have people that I followed on various social media outlets initially because they seem to be posting very interesting content about things that I was interested in, but I've lost interest in, unfollowed a number of them because over time I just saw all they were doing was self-promoting. Very little interaction, very little helpfulness to others, very little sharing of other content, sharing their own content all the time. So don't spam. It's number one. Mix, be generous, be a sharer. One of the most incredible things that you find on social media is that you can really build the power of your personal brand by sharing much more of other people's stuff than your own stuff. Guy Kawasaki is famous for saying that he tries to only promote himself or do something in a social media post that promotes directly his brand or his content only about 5% of the time. Now, I wouldn't make that a hard and fast rule, but I think it's a good one.
So for people getting started out trying to find that space of their own on the web, is it important to have a top-level domain, or is yourname.wordpress.com acceptable, or Blogger? Is there a particular platform that you would suggest people use to benefit the most from developing their brand online?
Yeah. Well, I think the ultimate is having your own hosted content with your name, if you can. Anything's better. I mean, you can do it on WordPress, you can do it on Blogger, and people have done it successfully. It used to be a lot more important than it is now to have what they call an exact match domain for the keyword that you want to rank for. And I'm not talking just about a personal name, but a company name or a business. If you sell, Hoover vacuum cleaners, if you could have hoovervacuumcleaner.com, that would help you rank a lot better for Hoover vacuum cleaners. It's not as important to the search engines as it used to be. It doesn't hurt. But yes, having that, best would be to have a self-hosted domain, and then beyond that, establishing your name. If you can, one of the things that you should do right away is check in as many of the main social media networks as you can, even if you're not using them yet, and see if your name is available, and grab it and establish a profile there. Even if you're not ready to use it yet, just get that name. I have cases where I wish I'd done that earlier.
Yeah, and I definitely want to share how I've used your advice in this realm, and that's in taking the same handle. I had the same problem with you, that PeterMcDermott.com had been taken. And, at one point I had a Twitter handle, Just a City Boy. I had JustACityBoy.com, embracing that lovely song we all know about. So at one point, though, I took the advice you gave me, which was you kind of have to have the same profile on everything, and I'll just kind of share how I've taken advantage of that, and that was by basically adding the middle initial to my name, because I could finally get a website, PeterGMcDermott.com, where it was unique. If you search Peter McDermott, you're going to find an artist, you're going to find a soccer player, you're going to find a bunch of people in history, but by adding that middle initial, I was able to differentiate myself from other people. So now I have that going on all my networks. From my personal blog to my YouTube page to my Twitter account, and then also to the Facebook page that I've created. And I've been very successful in doing just that. So that is some great advice you have there in creating a handle that's cross-platform and on those major social networks.
Now, I will say that, here again, I'm giving advice that I haven't completely followed myself, partly because I messed things up earlier. I didn't realize this earlier on, and I've already built a presence online with a certain name back in a number of social media forums back a number of years ago. My handle was The Foolish Sage, and so my personal blog is foolishsage.com. That was taken on Twitter, so I had @SageTheFool is my Twitter handle. None of those are my name. Now, I think I've overcome that to a certain extent because I've worked those very hard, and when people dig down to the profile level, they can see who I am, and people are getting to know my name. But I'm seriously rethinking that, and one of the things I'm thinking about doing is following your example and going for, I shouldn't say this out loud, but in case there's somebody who makes money off of domain names out there in the audience, but last night I found that Mark W. Traphagen is available .com, and I may I'll probably grab that as soon as I get off the air here, and repurpose my personal blog with that name, and go from there. So yeah, I haven't exactly followed the advice I'm giving, and you're doing a better job at it than I am.
Well, I'm just learning, and clearly you're much more relevant than I am according to Google search algorithms. So
well, on certain topics, but I'm sure there's things we could find where you beat me into the ground.
Well, we can certainly see. We can certainly see. So lots of negative press about Google Plus as a network. I feel like that's what we end up talking about a lot here, but it is the elephant in the room, and it's what people are talking about. It's what people enjoy hearing, so we do default to talking about that a lot. How do you think Google Plus is going to be an integral part of anyone's development of a personal brand?
Well, I think the drum that I'm obviously banging here is that I look at a much bigger picture for Google Plus, and why I'm on Google Plus so actively, why I have made that my main crusade, if you will. I mean, I'm building my personal brand, while I'm all about social media and about helping people in any form of social media. I'm actively making my niche. I'm betting my store, as it were, on Google Plus, because of Google Plus is connected to all of Google. And I think Google Plus is about a much bigger project by Google than just another social network. And most of these, almost all of these negative press articles that you're referring to are always just making the comparison of Google Plus to Facebook, Google Plus to Twitter, and on an apples-to-apples comparison like that, yeah, Google Plus looks terrible right now. At least to the outside world. There's always those of us that are screaming, we're in here, we're alive, we're having fun, we're having tons of engagement, but to the outside world, it doesn't look all that hot. Now, but here's what I'm telling people. Here's what I'm telling my clients, people that come to me for advice. This is what I'm telling them: is stick this thing out. Be in this for the long term. It's like a stock market investment decision. Because this is so connected and so integrated into Google search. 60% of the search market in the U.S., still 60 to 65%. And search is still the way. Now, if you're in business and you're trying to drive conversions, you're trying to drive sales or email signups or whatever it is that you are trying to get from people, it's still very, very true that the best ROI comes from organic search. If you can be driving search results, like I've shown that I'm already doing, via Google+, via my author connection, via my personal brand, that's the most valuable real estate you can have on the web. So that's why I'm investing in Google+ for the long run. It's one reason among many. I enjoy the platform. I love being here. I love hanging out here. I love talking with people here.
Well, if you had any parting words or parting advice for anyone starting to build a personal brand, 2 things to do and 2 things not to do, what would they be?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the 2 things not to do. You already said don't spam. The second thing to do is be about your topic, your main topic area is what your personal brand is about. Be about that as much as possible, but be human. I still on social networks, I post a lot about social media. I post a lot about Google+. Those are my topics. But I mix in, a funny picture when I find it, or an interesting news item. I try to be human and be helpful. Engage is the big buzzword that everybody in social media use. Be engaging. But I like to just term it be helpful. I think the most powerful thing for me on all my social media outlets that's built my brand is just being helpful. The old business advice about be good to the guy when you're going when you're going up the ladder, be good to the little people you meet along the way, because if you're coming down, you'll meet them again. I try to do that with so-called little people. I'll be as helpful to somebody that has 30 followers as somebody with 30,000 followers, because you never know who's going to be that person. That person with 30 followers a year from now might be that person with 30,000 followers. So I kind of blended over into what to do there. But yeah, stay on, post about your topic, decide a niche, and not just a topical, but also in your personal brand. Again, think carefully and think strategically about what do I bring to this that nobody else is bringing? What itch that's out there can I scratch like nobody else?
And I want to go to Brian Gunderson, who left probably the best comment out of all the comments we've seen so far in our live stream. If you're watching this, please leave comments below in the original post for me. Brian Gunderson says 2 words that I think are the most important and need to be heard by many, many, many brands on the internet. And those 2 words are be yourself.
Yes. Yes. And that, there, right there, is you're asking, what is the power of a personal profile for marketing, for getting a message across. And when I say marketing, by the way, I don't just mean selling things and making money. If you have a cause that's important to you, if you're political or you're religious or whatever it is that you have a humanitarian cause, you're marketing that as well, and you could be a personal brand for that. Just a little parentheses there. But yes, be human, be yourself, and do that not just here, but if you have a brand page, if you're posting as acme.com, wherever you're doing that, be human there too. People will begin to interact with a brand as a personal friend if you do that.
No, absolutely. And I think the buzzword engagement is going to kind of tune back a little bit. And the word that I've really been pushing to all the people that I work with in improving their brands is authenticity. And I really think that's what is behind a personal brand. That's why I wanted to have you today here this week on How to Make It Work. Mark Traphagen, thank you so much for your time, so much for your insight. And if people want to find you on the web, where should they go, Mark?
Thankfully, I was able to grab back years ago a verified Google Plus profile with a nice little name for it. So this is one place where I am tagged well, because we all know Google Plus profile IDs are horrible with a 17 or 24-digit number, whatever it is. But you can find me at profiles.google.com/trappermark. Or even better, just go on Google Plus and search for Mark Traphagen. I'm the only Mark Traphagen actively using Google Plus, so that scores for me. And that'd be the best place to find me. Again, Virante, virante.com/blog is where I do most of my blogging.
Well, Mark, thank you again so much for your time. I'm Peter McDermott from petergmcdermott.com. You can find me on Google+. Be sure to follow How to Make It Work on YouTube, Roku, TiVo, iTunes, and a host of other sites. We're going to have an audio version available starting this week, so you can listen to it while you're working out or on your way to work. I'm Peter G. McDermott. Stay tuned next week for another episode of How to Make It Work. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you, Peter. Enjoyed it.